You are about to see an excerpt on how to make hair like Summers from Rick and Morty from one of our classes. There is a link to the finished blend file in the description if you would like to use it. If you are interested in modeling the rest of summer or you're interested in any of our Rick and Morty themed classes, we will be glad and happy to email you a link to any of our classes on Skillshare, absolutely free. It's a free link. You don't need any subscription. Just sign up with the link in the description. Enjoy.
So right now we're going to go into the select lasso. Now we're just going to go into weight paint. So now we're just going to draw some weight on our character. So you can see that we still have the symmetry option enabled. So what we can do is just draw some weights on our body. So the weight is set on 1, which is what we want. So places with 0 weight are not going to have any hair. Places with 1 weight are going to have hair. Places with anything in between of 0 and 1 are going to have some hair as well, but less dense, of course. So let's try and draw the hairline of Summer, which is basically this rounded shape. So we're going to recreate that. So just draw that rounded shape. Maybe it needs to go up a little bit, something like that. Now move your camera around. So I'm going to show you right now. So we've got our nice weight paint group. And if you go to object data properties, you can see you've now got a group, and I'm going to double click in it and set it to hair. So this is going to be our hair group. So now let's go to the particle properties, and this is where the fun is going to start. So in the particle properties, there is nothing until you click on this plus sign, and then there's a lot. And I'm going to change emitter to hair. And now we've got hair all over the body. It has some default settings, the amount, the seeds, obviously the random generated seed. First of all, going to go into the vertex groups. So this is where we can define length, density, kink, and everything to our hair. So what do we want right now? Well, we just drew where we want the hair to be, which means that is where the hair needs to be dense, and on the other places it needs to be 0. So no density at all. So we're going to set the density to the weight group hair. And then you can see that our hair is being added on our weight group. Right, so let's just decrease this hair length a little bit. So just drag it down. And now you have to go and start thinking about how you're going to achieve this ponytail, right? So all of this hair is going to be combed back, and that's going to we're going to get into that later, and then it's going to create the hair that is combed back until the point where it is being clamped by whatever. Maybe it's an elastic thing, or maybe it's a rubber band. But anyway, it's going to be clamped by something. So that's where we're going to comb it to. So let's see what length we need. I think this is already fine. Yeah, this is fine. So we're going to keep it like this, and we're going to go to children and select interpolated, yes, exactly. And then we're going to change this. So right now, if you set your children, your hair children to simple, they are going to be added on a little bit of a chaotic places. But if you go and select interpolated, it's going to add them to each strand or in between each strand. So that's always a little bit easier to work with when you do hair. And parting, I don't really use that much. For clumping, I use this a lot, but not that much in female hair, because clumping is going to, you can see that it's going to try to clump hairs together into one point. Then it's going to do it more towards the end. And if I decrease the shape, it's going to do it from the start. So if we, for example, go to render, you can see that we have 3 steps. I mostly set this on 5. In viewport display, you've got strand steps, that's on 2. This means that our long hair only has 2 steps. So now we can actually see what we're doing. So you've also got this clump noise option. And if we enable that, you can already see we've got a little bit more control. Now you can also use a clump curve, which is what I use sometimes as well. And the clump curve basically shows you how your hair is going to clump. So this endpoint is actually the endpoint. So right now there's no clumping. So if you move this down all the way, then your endpoint is going to be clumped. But now you can also add points in between. So I can add a point here by clicking, dragging it up. And that basically means that our hair is going to clump more towards the end and less in the start. You can add even another point and go nuts with it. So you can play around with that as well. So right now I'm just going to keep it for maybe a little bit more linear. Let's see. And we are just going to the next step. Roughness and kink. So roughness and kink, well, they are separate things. So let's explain them separately as well. If you go to the roughness, the next thing, diameter root, basically means the thickness of your hair on the root, so where it starts. And for this, it's always good to set your render engine on cycled device to GPU if you've got a nice GPU. And let's see the rendered view. So now, right now, it's set on 1 meter. So our hair is a very, very thick. So let's see, diameter root is 1 meter. We can change this. I usually try 0.2 or something like that first, which is what I use a lot of the time. So this is still a little bit thick. Of course, this also depends on the scale in which you created your character. So we might have to try 0.05. Maybe a little bit thicker. So 0.1 might be the way to go. And the tip at 0, I always think the 0 of the tip is a little bit over exaggerated, right? So the tip of a hair, of course, it goes into a point, but I mostly like to have some kind of thickness there. Just a little bit, maybe. All right, so something like that is going to be fine. So let's go back to the solid view and let's change our object mode to particle edit, where we can actually change the shape of our hairs. So you've got a few modes right here, and I'm going to explain what I'm going to need in this tutorial. So the comb tool is the one you use the most. So if you need your hair to be combed back or in some kind of shape, you're going to use the comb tool. And as we did for the sculpt tool, we now have the circle, which basically is the radius, and we can increase this by pressing F and dragging this up. We also have the strength value right here. 0.5 is usually fine to work with. So now you can just left click, hold, and drag your hair. And you can just shape it in any way that you want. That you can go to the length tool. So you have got two options, grow and shrink, which obviously mean lengthen and shorten the hair. So if we go to options, you can see on the bottom we've got path steps, which is set on 2. If we set it on 5, it is going to change those settings, and now we can actually add more detail. So if you can't get the thickness out of your hair, you can use this puff tool. So if you select this puff tool, you can add and subtract. And if you click now, it's going to try and puff everything up, as you can see. Let's go back to object mode. So we're going to go into our camera view for now. So that's actually looking fine.